but we have to wait to confirm that we're live streaming.
So I did bring up of the meeting.
Okay, good.
Excuse me, they had offered to let us meet there or whatever. Discussing.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, thank you.
That's just checking, see you had time back on. Yes.
All right, so do this first.
Okay.
All right, welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the VMNH Board of Trustees quarterly meeting. Welcome, everybody. All right, so our first action is approval. Oh, that one first official note from Joe. Exciting. Okay, I'd like to welcome Dr. Coleman from the foundation to our meeting. Thank you for attending. Okay. All right. So first action item is approval of the minutes. The minutes were included in the package that was sent out. I reviewed them and I hope hopefully other people did as well. Does anybody have any corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay, does someone want to move that we approve the minutes? Second?
Third.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, I think the minutes are approved. Okay, chair's report. We've got quite a few things here. Yes.
To let the minutes show that Nathan is with us, and do we need to authorize him to be able to vote?
Yes, that's a good point. So we can make two motions, and the first would be to allow Nathan to enter the meeting, and the second motion would both be to allow him to vote.
And Roberto.
And
Roberto, okay.
So you can do the both simultaneously.
Okay, so first motion is to allow Nathan and Roberto to attend the meeting. Somebody want to put that?
I'll move that.
Second. All any discussion? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, the second motion is to allow Nathan and Roberto to vote as part of the meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, both motions carry. All right, any other business before we turn to the chair's report?
I don't know if you guys need to, this is Nathan. I thought you might need to know why we were participating remotely. So I just wanted to say I'm participating remotely due to illness.
Roberto?
Family and medical issues.
Okay.
Family caretaking and medical issues.
Anything else before we move to the next agenda item? Okay. All right, so the first item on the agenda after the minutes is the chair's report. So I have a couple of items and then we'll do the items that are on the agenda. So first I'd like to welcome Dr. Welcome Dr. Kuhn, who's just joined the staff for herpetology. We've wanted somebody on herpetology for a long time, so it's very exciting that we have Dr. Kuhn. Also want to congratulate the staff and the museum for the events yesterday. I understand both went well. One was to launch the energy savings program. I don't know if you all saw the EV chargers out in the parking lot today, and it's very exciting. And then also to welcome Dr. Kuhn and to introduce the curators and research staff to the museum. So was anybody able to attend? Yep, good experience and went well. Very good. Okay, Waynesboro is going very, very smoothly. I look forward to hearing more about that. I want to congratulate the museum and the staff for the Bones and Booze festival that they just had. They had over 2,100 attendees. Notably, 1,000 of them approximately were there as part of the EBT program. So, we've long wanted to have folks of diverse incomes attend our festival. So it's very good that happened. To that end, I have a resolution thanking Hooker Furnishings for their funding. They've made a 2-year commitment to the museum. And they allow those attendees, those approximately 1,000 attendees, to attend for free. And we were talking about this earlier in the executive meeting, when it was just $1 or $2, it even made a difference. So free is free, and it made a big difference. So I'm going to read this resolution thanking Hooker Furnishings for helping us with that. You're going to have to vote on this. So pay attention. All right. Whereas Hooker Furnishings has an abiding interest in community support and growth. Whereas Hooker Furnishings values educational experiences that bring STEM topics to all. Whereas Hooker Furnishings worked closely with the Virginia Museum of Natural History Foundation to fund the Museums for All program beginning in March 2021, providing free access to the museum by citizens served by the Supplemental Nutrition Access Program, SNAP. Whereas the newly funded Museums for All program served more than 3,200 people since March 2021, thanks to Hooker Furnishing support. Whereas Hooker Furnishings has improved our community by increasing the diversification of visitors to the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History hereby express its appreciation and admiration for Hooker Furnishing leadership and dedication to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Done this 12th day of November 2022 in Martinsville by hopefully unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Any discussions on the resolution? Okay, I need a motion to approve the resolution.
I move to approve.
And a second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Oh, we have to do you guys one at a time, don't we? Roberto and Nathan, do you guys say aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Nathan votes aye.
All right. Anybody opposed? Okay. All right. Couple more things before we turn to the items on the agenda. This is the second meeting we've had in November that's fallen on Veterans Day weekend. I have talked with Joe and asked that not happen again. I'm not sure if others of you have veterans. My dad is a veteran. My grandfather's a veteran. I missed the ceremony yesterday where the flag on my grandfather's grave for Veterans Day. So I think it's better if we don't meet on Veterans Day. It's a state holiday. So our future board meetings will not fall on anybody's 3-day weekend before Veterans Day. Any discussion about that? Okay, all right, thank you. I hope folks will stay at the end of the meeting. You see it on the agenda, there's going to be a tour of the Douglas Avenue facility. I hope people will stay for that. It's a big part of our strategic discussion this summer. I think it's important that you see it. I've heard so many stories about it. I think it's what, my 3rd or 4th year on the board, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing it. I'm mostly appreciative of seeing it now that it's HVAC and a roof, but I especially want to see it no matter what. So I hope people will stay. All right, last 2 items. As part of my prerogative as chair, I've added 2 items to each meeting. One is a staff introduction and one is a deep dive. So Mary Zell is going to be our staff introduction. She's going to talk about herself. And then Joe is going to do a little bit of a deep dive on our relationship with the community. I think it's important we understand what a relationship is with the community. And so he's going to talk about that. We do not have a deep dive topic for our next meeting. So if there's something you want to know more about or think we should know more about as a board, text me or email me or let Joe know. Something we spend 5 or 10 minutes on, you know, that we learn more about, but we just wouldn't come up in normal board business. So Mary Zell, tell us all about you.
Sure. I'll go to the front like Robbie. I'm not as exciting as Robbie. I don't have a PowerPoint. I was going to do a presentation about 15 minutes ago. So bear with me. Lynn Elmhound was supposed to be presenting today, and unfortunately she came down with the flu. So I'm Lynn today. I'm not going to talk about security though. I'm going to talk about what I do for my job. So I work in Joe's office, as you all know. I help with advancement work. which ranges from helping with mailing annual fund letters to inputting donation information. So we have a database where we track that type of thing. I do everything from sending reminder letters if your membership is about to expire. So that type of work. Outside of advancement, I also help manage the board, as you all know. So I plan these meetings. I also help manage the committee meetings as well. And which we have a couple every month. Usually it ranges. We always have a Waynesboro Advocacy Committee and sometimes a couple bonus ones thrown in as well. Outside of that, I also help with special projects at the museum, which has been most currently the Waynesboro project. So I've attended many meetings with our architects and helped take records during those meetings and provide input. One of my new tasks is I've been helping manage the museum's interns. Since I've been working here, I've had 6 interns, I think, so far. They're primarily late high school and early college age students who are interested in science, but might not be quite ready to be working with an individual curator. So I'll come up with projects for them and set up opportunities for them to shadow with other folks. So that's been an exciting opportunity for me. Outside of this, I came from the museum immediately from grad school. I got my master's in museum studies and I focused on science museums. While in grad school, I interned at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, which is in St. Michael's, Maryland. I was working in their advancement office, so it definitely gave me a piece of the types of work I'm doing here, which is very valuable. I also worked in grad school for a professor of museum administration. So I helped him research a book on museum finance that is now out and you can buy it at Barnes & Noble because he's still promoting it. So if you want to read about museum finance and really dive into that, I can send you the link. For undergrad, I went to Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia, so about 2 hours away from here. I majored in history, actually, which has nothing to do with science, but I've always been really excited about science. My first introduction to really getting into science was I totally fell in love with my high school chemistry class. I had a great time. We got to light things on fire. It was a blast. I also did robotics in high school, which gave me another sort of an avenue towards science as well. So I've always been trying to just diversify as many opportunities as I could have to give me as many opportunities in museums, whether it's science or history. Lisa also asked me to talk about what do I want to be when I grow up, which is the $1 million question, because I have no clue. And it's not cute to say that when you're 25, because you have a real reason now and a real thing to say. But that being said, I'd really like to work in museum administration, maybe continue a Jewish job one day eventually, be a museum director.
Yeah, I'm getting tired.
But I feel like I think I have plenty of time to figure that out. Outside of work, I've really gotten into running in the past year. I just ran half marathon in October. So maybe I'll run the Richmond Marathon next year. We'll see. It's a big if. I also love to read and travel. I went to Atlanta last weekend, which is exciting. But yeah, those are the highlights. Does anybody have any questions?
Mary, so we're all still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'll also point out, we feel we are very advantaged here at the Virginia Museum of Natural History. I know we've always talked about our appropriation and state support and everything like that, but compared to a lot of the other nonprofits locally, we have an abundance of resources. And we take that seriously. So we do try to help out other organizations where we can. So Mary and Zell work closely with the Fayette Area Historical Initiative, which is the museum about the African American experience in Martinsville. So she developed new exhibit material for them surrounding the story of the Martinsville Seven. And they were very grateful for that. And so she not only did work for them in terms of help developing that exhibit material, but then coach them in how they can do the next steps themselves. So that way they can continue to grow their fledgling. Well, it's not really a fledgling, it's been around for a while. They have their first, well, they have a new
First full-time director. They just hired.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed getting to work with them. I created 2 exhibits for them earlier last winter and it was the spring. It still should be up if you want to check them out. They're on Fayette Street, so I'll promote anything. But I really, in college, I worked at the Civil Rights Museum, so I really got a taste for interpreting civil rights history then and how best to handle that. So I was really able to use those skills in my job here as well. But there's lots of great opportunities like that to help around the community here.
I think you've got a question. Makunda, is that you?
Yeah, am I not? What am I coming up as?
Reese Women's something.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's me.
Okay, all
I
right.
never know what it's showing on there, and I'm not tech savvy enough to change it half the time. I just was just to echo what's already been said as far as with the community work. I was really impressed with reaching out and doing the work with the Fahey and being able to be more involved in our community. So I think it's just a great look for us and a great way to give back to the local community with because a lot of times I think like, just the other day I did call Joe because there was a grant that I was interested in applying for. And I mean, my bent is maternal mortality. And we needed to be able to find a research institution. And I knew there wasn't going to be anything with the dinosaurs and the paleontology and that we do already that would lend itself. But just having the access to Joe and just kind of running through what were potential research institutions in our area was helpful. And so the more that we're able to be resources in the community, it's just a good thing. That's all I wanted to echo, that I'm happy that we were able to help Faye, and I hope that we can do more partnerships where, because on the surface you're just like, oh, it's the Museum of Natural History, it's all about archaeology, paleontology, blah blah blah. It's not going to have any like ability to blend into some other areas, but in fact it does, because you guys know really well how to do displays and museum quality archival preservation, and those are skill sets that would be important for a lot of different venues. So that's it. Just happy that we're doing the work.
Okay, thank you, Makunda, and thank you, Marisol, for being here. We really appreciate your
You're
work.
welcome. And next month I'll find somebody else who's not me, who had lots of other exciting things. Thank you. I'll recruit someone.
And thank you for doing it last minute.
Yeah.
All right, and I think we need to vote to include Makunda in the meeting and then vote to allow Makunda to vote. So somebody have a motion to allow,
I'll move that we include Makunda in the meeting.
okay, second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we need a motion that would allow Makunda to vote.
I'll move that she be allowed to vote. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
We may need to record a reason.
record what?
A reason for her.
Makunda, is there a reason you're not here that you could share with us? We have to take that down. We're not asking you to.
I'm working. Yeah, I'm doing an assignment at a hospital in Richmond, so I'm physically not in Martinsville.
Okay, you got that, Marisol? Okay. All right. The next item is our relationship with Waynesboro. I'm sorry, with well, we can talk about Waynesboro another time. A relationship with Martinsville and Henry County.
Yeah, so I'm going to be turning a chunk of this over to Christy because the official relationship impacts her quite a bit. But I want to say that it lends itself to what Dr. Abdul Baki was mentioning, that we have a great relationship with the city, and it looks one way in terms of, say, like the funding they provide us that Christy will talk about, but they'll call us for support for events and so forth, and we actually just loan them our lift. We have a nice lift out back, and it's bigger than the one the city has. We're awesome, and so we drove the thing all the way uptown to support a project that helped the city out. So, but this long relationship, I think it certainly predates me, probably even predates Christy and Ryan and so forth. But Christy, tell us about the relationship, the official relationship with both Martinsville and Henry County.
Yes, thank you. So we do work very closely with both Martinsville City and Henry County with their various departments. And we have had a relationship with them for, many years. As far as the education department goes, we apply for outside funding through Martinsville City and Henry County every year. And the funds go to supplement our 2 full-time education staff that are not fully funded through the state. So that is able to, keep our staff going. And so we work very closely, of course, with the school systems, but not just the school systems. We work with various departments such as Henry County Parks and Recreation. Martinsville City's Parks and Rec has kind of went in a different realm, but we still work closely with the parks because we have the Wilson Park right behind the museum. We utilize that park greatly. And so we have a great relationship with the city, utilizing the park and various other parks. We also work with the library system, which is through Martinsville City. So they have branch libraries, the main library being in Martinsville, and then Henry County has several other branch libraries. So we work with the library system for programming and collaborative programs when we can assist. And then we also work with the extension office through Henry County, the 4-H extension office with collaborative programs. And then also other departments such as Martinsville City with the police department providing assistance with our festivals, things of that nature. But going back to the funding, with the support from Martinsville City and Henry County, we offer a discounted program rate for those school districts. All of our programs are fee-based, just so that helps support our staff salary. And so we offer a discounted rate for their programming as a benefit to helping support us. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of stuff, but y'all want to jump in?
I'll just say that having that support and having that relationship is key to a lot of grant proposals that we put together. So we celebrate that story. We were able to leverage those funds and showing that local support goes a long way to provide sort of the legitimacy, but strong message for us that we are a community partner, not only as a state agency, but also locally. So I think we always highlight that. It's been very helpful to
I think I put a note down here that for your fiscal year 23, you're already 100% funded to them, right?
Yeah, we get one check from the city. Sorry, we get a check from the city and a check from the county. They're pretty well, squared away. They get it was pretty quickly.
So the relationship is good.
Problem. I mean, even when we had a bit of an issue with our plumbing at what was it, Dino Fest, we called the city manager up, and he sent the guy over. I mean, it didn't do any good, right? We fixed it ourselves. Yes, exactly. So
We can rely on them, they can rely on us.
yeah, I'd say so.
Anybody have any other questions about the relationship? I just want to make sure it was good. Any other questions?
We do have new city council folks, so we're going to establish a relationship. The ones that had been serving have known us for a long time, so we had a little turnover. We always, because they give us funding, we have traditionally in the past gone to city council and board of supervisors meeting to thank them and just give a 5-minute overview of how we're using the funds. They actually asked us to stop doing that, right? Because they're like, you're good, you don't, we're going to keep funding you. So, but with these new ones that have come on board with the city council, will establish a relationship with them here shortly. Yes, sir.
Do you think we should have them here for maybe a full reception and tour?
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously not just the new ones, but the old ones, the entire council to say, you know,
Thank you.
thank you and,
We want more.
well, that comes later. After they have their lunch, no, but just like, you know, want you to be aware of what this museum is, what we do, good chance for maybe some of the staff to talk about their work, kind of an educational reception.
Well, I like it, because I mean, I guess it's like muscle memory for us. When the Historical Society needs something, you know, we go and help them. They ask, we want to turn down, you know? So, you know, for what we do, that's just part of our day to day, like so much that we do, they might not be aware, you know? So I get where you're coming from with that, and I like the idea. So we'll put heads together and come up with a solution and let you
Just
know.
call it a night at the museum.
Just facilities related questions. Our water bills come from the city and we pay the city or water.
So the utilities,
Utilities,
gas,
yeah.
electric, part of the ESCO project when they're putting solar panels, the city was here on site, helping us. Exactly. Yeah, they go come from the municipality.
Right, right. And we don't give any discount rate for that. We still don't get any other.
Correct, any corporation, we're corporation.
Thank you.
And Douglas Avenue and the small annex building, they're on separate meters. They all came through the same process though.
Anything else in relationship with the city or the county? Okay. All right, I think with that, any questions for the chair? Okay, with that, I think we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Board.
All right, so if y'all look at your first quarter fiscal year 23 balance sheet here, I'm gonna start at the revenue part. So we taxes all this up, and this morning in our meeting, line item 4, federal funds budgeted, we received the $200,000. We haven't got any of that yet. And that was explained to us from Joe this morning that that's basically a spend it before we get it kind of deal. So that's why it shows a 0 there. So it's nothing that's alarming or should be worried about. It's just something we haven't spent yet. That's why we didn't get into that.
Well, just a quick addition to that, as this report is for the quarter and ends September 31st, we've initiated with the Smithsonian to have those funds transferred here.
On our expenses, on line item number 5, you'll see under travel, we're already at 54% of our expenses. A lot of that was for the Wyoming dig. We went ahead and put money out there, and it'll be reimbursed also. Line item number 6 for vehicle maintenance, we are at 72% already. That was because someone stole the catalytic converter out of the truck that we use for the museum. So they've already got a plan on fixing that, so it doesn't happen again. But that's the reason that's so high on that one. Our printing, obviously, line item number 6, we're over 237%. But this budget was made, during the pandemic, and we wasn't expecting the turnout we're having now. So all that's good. So on top of that, I was going to throw Ryan on the spot a little bit because he came out with some numbers at our finance meeting the other day about the foundation revenue and stuff like that. I wanted him to talk about that.
Okay. That's specifically, so for the first quarter of fiscal year 23, overall foundation revenue is up 101% over the last first quarter. Obviously, this last quarter was slightly affected by the pandemic, although foundation donations did go strong throughout the pandemic. So again, foundation donations overall are up. And it's across the board. It's not only grants and partnerships, but also memberships and annual fund as well. So strong start of the year. Not to say it's going to be up 100% throughout the year, but it's a very strong start.
And one of the last thing I got is real quick. We were going over these hot maps that Joe showed us earlier, and the Dino Fest in 2019, pre-pandemic, obviously, we had 3,632 visitors for that Dino Fest. And in our most recent balance in 2022, we had over 4,600 visitors. So while it's not saying that we're back, it is showing that people want to get out and do stuff now. And the numbers there, we were over 1,000 more visitors at that last night fest than it was 2019. So the growth is definitely there. That's my treasurer's report.
Any additional questions for Ford on the treasurer's report? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Does Roberto want to say?
Oh, I'm sorry, Roberto.
That's okay. I apologize for missing the meeting minutes. I didn't know when to bring this up, but since it was, we had a discussion last time during the treasurer's report regarding the audits. And in the meeting minutes, it kind of reflects that the item or the issues that brought up were kind of resolved. But in my mind, I don't know if we have a definitive answer on one, what a responsibility the state auditors have on informing the board when these audits are done and issues that come up. And then number two, as an operating board, what responsibility, accountability, et cetera, we have as a board when these audits are done and if any issues come up. So I can't tell from the picture if our counsel is there, but I personally don't think we have a definitive answer to those 2 points. And the meeting minutes don't really reflect that there were actually questions on the table as opposed to just discussion items. So I as you may realize, I'm sort of a governance wonk at times. So I'll leave it to my fellow board members to see any suggestions on where we go next. But it would be great to have definitive answers on the record as to those 2 points that were brought up.
I'll start with just to make sure we're aware. We of course have two organizations, the Foundation Board and the State of Virginia. Foundation Board does get a annual audit, and the board gets a presentation. In fact, they have a presentation coming up this coming Foundation Board meeting next week. So as long as I've been here, it's always come out glowing. Right. So I do have a copy here if anyone would like to take it with or anything like that. So that's a separate situation. That's very traditional. On the state level, though, we get 3 times every year.
Every year, better than the minutes from last time.
Right. So what they end up doing is now that's an overall organizational audit, which does include finances. And as I recall, our letter last time, it had some suggestions on some forms of procedures that they wanted us to go through, which we responded to, and then the rest of it was IT, right? And it was IT security, disaster preparation, and things like that. So we had to take some templates and add that to our continuation of operation plan and so forth. One of the issues that are recurring is we don't have a full-time IT person here. So Joel Clifton, 50% of his time is to be our internet security officer, right? There's supposed to be 2. One's called an ISO, an internet security officer, and I can't remember what the other acronym stands for. But we got permission to wrap them into one. It's supposed to be a separation of duties. We just don't have the staff to do it. So as far as the responsibility of the auditor of public accounts, the procedures they provide the CFO and executive director with that report. And if the board would like, we could then forward that straight out to the board of trustees or the executive committee, whichever you would like, or the treasurer, we just basically reported out on the results of those audits when we get them.
So let's just take the 2 things separately. So the foundation is audited annually. The audit is presented to the foundation. If there are any action items, the foundation addresses them, but they've come out glowingly with no recommendations.
That's correct.
Okay. Does anybody feel like we have any action items we need to take with regard to the foundation audit? Okay, so let's move on to the museum audit every 3 years. Where are we in the 3-year cycle? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Back to year 1. So 2 more years until that.
2 more years. Okay, and you have reported out to the board on the items that were in the museum audit that was done?
Yes.
And you reported on the action items we're taking to address those items that were in the audit.
Yes.
Does anybody feel like there are any other action items we need to take with regard to the audit of the museum?
Maybe I missed something, but I don't know that I got a follow-up to the last meeting on the auditor's report. Did you send that out?
I believe it's a link. I don't know if we got a.
Oh, it said in the minutes that you were gonna actually share that with all board members, so. I would follow up on
I have
that.
one copy there.
But there is a link, is there a link there?
Or the link,
There is a link.
as long as we can find it.
Okay,
later.
sorry.
Yeah, in fact, what Jonathan did too is he combined both the audit report, which is what 2 pages or 3 pages,
Yeah,
something,
letter, summary.
and then however many documents that we produced in response to the auditor's questions.
Right, so they'll ask for that next time. They'll say, what have you guys done? That's the last audit. It turned out to be like a 40-page document. Anybody would like to flip through it? Happy to share.
So that information will be sent out directly, Mary Jo.
Yes, I can send out the document. I know it's to 2 folks already, I believe, but I can send out the document I was shared by Jonathan to all of you right now.
Okay.
That's great.
And
Are there-
we're looking for a link to pick that up.
Are there other action items we need to take with regard to those audits?
Well, I think that Roberto is getting at it, that we'd like to see that as a regular course of business, that gets sent out rather than an ad hoc sort of.
So once every 3 years, you
Yeah.
have to remember to make that happen.
Well, that's.
Joe?
Yeah.
Once every
that's
3
fair.
years, we need to make sure we get the audit and then we have a report of the action items we're taking to address the items in the audit.
And Roberto had asked if the Auditor of Public Accounts will give a presentation to the board. So we reached out and they said that they don't normally do that. We're happy to do that. So we can set that up too.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And
Okay, so the report's being sent out. Joe and the museum are tasked with doing that. Every time we get audited, we're gonna ask for a report of the next audit.
yes,
Any other action items we need to take with regard to audits of the museum or the foundations?
That's what I have to put together.
Roberto, are you good?
I guess where I'm coming from is in the nonprofit world, the auditors directly report to the board. And I don't know what the statutes are in the state in regards to how the state agency does it. So having them not talk to us directly was just a disconnect in my mind. So I just don't know if there are statutes that say they're supposed to do anything with us, or it's just protocol that they go to staff and we get told, eventually. So that, that's a yes or no question to me. Do they have a responsibility or not? I don't know what that answer is.
yeah, Roberto, we'll look into that, and you're right, because the foundation board is who hires Mallard to do their audit, and then Mallard sends a person with hard copies that then presents to the executive committee and the full board of the foundation. We will find out what is SOP of the Auditor of Public Accounts, and then if we want to go beyond that, then it just simply becomes a request.
Yeah, I don't need them to tell us anything. I mean, the report is the report. They do what they have to do. It's just kind of like, in my mind, what is on us? The last thing I want is something to happen and somebody says, oh, you should have known. Well, if I don't know what I don't know, I don't know what I should have done. So I just like to know what I should know.
Okay, I think we're gonna resolve it by having them ask them to report next time. We'll find out what the standard procedure is for reporting going forward. You've got the old audit report. And our response to what we're doing about the audit report findings. Okay, if there's anything more that we need to do, please, Roberto, get in touch.
Yeah, no, it's just a technical question. I mean, I have no concerns. I have no issues. When I was treasurer, I was just surprised that this happened and, I hadn't heard from anybody. So I in the spirit of leaving things in a better state than we found them, it's great for whoever comes after us to have the full disclosure and knowledge of how this goes on so that nobody's surprised.
We'll check with Science Museum of Virginia and Fine Arts as well. We'll talk to our counterparts over there and
Report back.
yeah, find out what they do.
Not related to the audit, but related to our own business regarding treasurer's reports. It's my understanding that Robert's rules doesn't require us to approve and really doesn't recommend that we approve treasurer's reports unaudited.
We just.
We accept them as information, but we don't make a motion to approve a treasurer's report because we don't have an audit of that.
So
I just
accept
wanted to bring that up as
Okay,
a comment about our order of business.
then do you feel like we need to revote?
I don't think we did vote on this one yet.
We haven't,
So
okay,
I would not make a motion at this point, other than to accept it as.
okay. Anything else on audits, treasurer's report, etc.? Okay, would someone like to move that we accept, not approve, the treasurer's report?
I'll do that.
Okay, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes to accept the treasurer's report. All right, Joe, Executive Director.
Okay, kind of underscoring some of the things we've kind of heard a bit about. We are on the trend that we were hoping for. We had the drop off in attendance during the pandemic in 2021. We saw things coming back, but still quite a bit lower than 2019. This year, the attendance is already looking well to exceed last fiscal year. So we're off to a good start there. What we're also seeing is that our revenues are quite a bit more than we've seen in the past. So what the profit per customer is very high. So and that involves as well, we have, you know, a large number of people we're serving through the Museums for All program with EBT cards. So that bodes well for us going into the future. Brian's going to talk more about those heat maps during the advancement report, but you know, just to kind of put out there, we talked 10 years ago saying, how do we get more people to know? How do we get more people to know? I think the heat maps are and the zip code distributions upon which they're based, they're showing us that there are more people traveling to come here than ever before. Can we do better? Hopefully so, right? But I'm just very pleased from an operational standpoint that we're serving broader audiences. So that is very positive. So shifting gears, speaking of new audiences and the Waynesboro project, we will have a Waynesboro Advocacy Committee report towards the end of the meeting, but I've been spending quite a bit of my time up in Waynesboro and Stanton and Charlottesville and talking to we're getting a lot of requests from groups, from garden clubs, art clubs, birding clubs, AARP. Who did I talk to yesterday? Oh, yes, former foundation president's retirement community. So she had me up in Charlottesville yesterday talking to them. So there's getting to be a huge swell of interest in the project, especially now that people see that we are funded and moving forward through our detailed design. So yeah, so that's very positive. We're really excited about that.
Joe, to that
Yes, sir.
end, that all those groups that are showing all that excitement, can they help us as we go to the General Assembly and then?
Yes, I give them marching orders
Okay.
and we've sent them form letters and everything else like that. We want them, since the majority of them, not all, the majority of them are within Delegate Aboli's and Senator Hanger's district. Yeah, I'm asking them to send letters of thanks and so forth, to talk to anybody else that they can think of that would be influential.
We'll get copies of all those, not the board, but I mean, as the museums, we have like a whole stack of that, and we will, when we go to the General Assembly, we'll look at all.
That's a good, you know, I don't request copies.
I just wonder, because I mean, it doesn't hurt to have,
Yeah.
you know, show and tell occasionally.
Sure.
Anyway,
All right, let's see what we can do about that. So they're all seemingly willing to pitch in that way. With that as well, we're asking people to sign up for our newsletter so we get contact information from them. So that's been a swelling database as well. So yeah, so I just could be more pleased with that kind of community support. And so we do have some funds in our foundation account for the project. And so you might recall last summer, we brought a busload of people down from the Stanton, Waynesboro area to visit here, and that really helped kind of gel that connection. And so we're offering that again, and there is interest. People do want to do that. So the UVA Lifelong Learning Institute wants to do it. Waynesboro AARP and the retirement community actually wants to set up a field trip, which I think maybe they'll fund since they can take bus trips out in different parts of the Commonwealth. So
Would it help if those of us who live up in that area came along on those trips?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll let anyone within I don't know, 50-mile radius know. If you want to show up and help, shake some hands and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I just know a bunch of those organizations. I've given talks, but
I'm sure.
yeah. So, yeah.
All right, good. So as Lisa alluded to during the chair's report, our staff is growing, and we also have a small amount of turnover. So in addition to Dr. Kuhn starting in October, we also are in the search for a new technician that will receive specialized training in the HVAC upgrades, solar energy, and so forth. So that's been a tough road to find someone with a skill set. We don't exactly have a large contingent of people applying for that job. Although Tim, I think was it yesterday? I think it was either yesterday or the day before that he interviewed someone that they were really excited about. So
Is that because of the salary range?
I think it's partly the salary, though this isn't a bad thing. This is a new position that's been funded. But I think that's part of it. People can go to commercial operations to make more. And then there's just a shortage of trained people. So the last building the grounds guy we hired, he's excellent. He's very young, doesn't have a lot of specialized training, so he's getting no JT, and we're sending him to some programming down in Greensboro as well. But he doesn't come with a lot of experiences. I think this might be his first, kind of career job, out of school. So we're lucky to have him because he is enthusiastic and he's a bright guy. So we're lucky there.
You might have retention issues too. We've trained up a lot of people on solar and battery storage at Dominion, only to see them go to other organizations once we train them because of the growing battery solar industry.
Yeah,
So
we don't have batteries in our system. So
you have solar and EV chargers.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
same comment, if I substituted EV chargers for batteries.
You're,
right?
you're correct. One thing we have going for us is we do have a great benefit system, including a retirement program.
Do we?
So, do you really?
It's hard to get a 25-year-old excited about retirement at 65.
I'm just saying it's a high turnover rate.
Yeah. The other position that we're working on right now is a turnover situation where we did a resolution at the last board meeting for Jessica Davenport from Lynchburg with her husband. So she was our exhibits manager. We're now, well, Ron, can you give a quick update on where we stand on that?
Sure. So the search closed November 1st. We are in the process of narrowing down to our top candidates. We're actually going to meet on Monday and whittle that down hopefully to our top 3, 4, 5, whatever we feel like it's best, and we'll start scheduling interviews. So we have a search committee, good candidates out there, lots of diverse experience. And we're pretty excited about it. Our goal is to get that person. It depends on a lot of things, a lot of factors, but hopefully by the end of the year or first thing in January.
And the timing's good because our next 2 exhibits are rentals. So this person can get the experience of working with the staff and getting to know everyone without having to develop an exhibit from scratch, which is a very large project. And going back to Dr. Kuhn, she's leading the search for a new research technician. So that will be a nice shot for over in research and collections. So they have a Zoom interview. They like the Zoom interview a lot. So I don't know how many people they did, but I understand it was quite a few. So we'll be bringing in some in-person interviews here in the near future. So that's very exciting. Last thing that I want to bring up, and everything else we talked about in the executive committee will be covered in the committee reports. But the last thing that's exciting, the staff of the House Appropriations in Richmond reached out to us. If you recall, we put in a request for the Early Childhood Learning Center, which we're now calling the Young Explorers Center, right? So that is where the old library space is. I think everyone's seen that space. If you haven't, we can show it to you real quick. We put in a request to have that area refurbished and set up with approximately pre-K through 5 exhibitry and hands-on kinds of interactive stations and so forth, as well as an educator with a specialty in early childhood education. That made it through the Senate and not through the House. However, what we kind of learned is that if the House Appropriations staff, I'm not calling them gatekeepers or anything, but they're going to be the ones to kind of put things in front of legislators. And if we don't get their support, it's difficult to get that kind of funding. So apparently the project did pique their interest because they asked to come for an on-site visit December 7th. And we have Dr. Joan Montgomery, who is former principal here in Martinsville, and Dr. Zeb Talley, who's our school superintendent in Martinsville. They'll be attending the meeting as well. So, yeah, so we'll report out on how that goes. So Lisa, again, I think that everything else we talked about was going to come in the committee. So I'll end it there unless anybody has any questions or comments.
Questions for Joe? All right. Art, I think you're up for the Research and Collections Committee report.
Okay, well, I always want the opportunity to remind everyone here and joining us today that research and collections is why the museum exists. And it's our state mandate, and our education programs and exhibits come from all that. And it's because of research and collections that the museum is here and can take part in community development too. So having said that, I want to repeat some of what Joe and Lisa have already said. I wanted to welcome Dr. Ariane Kuhn to the museum. It's a big deal having a herpetologist here at the museum. Of course, herpetology involves the study of reptiles and amphibians, but she will also oversee the fish collection here at the Natural History Museum. These are research areas that we've long been interested in having somebody take over here, and I think we found an excellent person in Dr. Kuhn. Excuse me, I had the opportunity to spend some time with her a couple of weeks ago when I was working here at the museum, and she gave an excellent introduction to herself at the reception last night. She's incredibly articulate. She knows what she wants to do. And I was very impressed with her ability to talk to a general audience. And she presented her research and her interests in a very accessible and engaging way. And I think we're really lucky to have her join our already stellar crew of curators. So well done. I wish her well in finding just the right fit for a technician to assist her with her work too. That's something that I want to mention as well. We now have 5 curators here, and we are inching ever so steadily toward making sure they have the support they need to do the research that they are mandated to do by the state and to the benefit of all citizens of Virginia. I also want to take a moment to thank Dr. Ivanov of the Department of Research and Vertebrates, who's joining us today. And I appreciate the curators that take time out of their weekends to join us here. I know that when you're a small institution and you have a lot of public programs going on, weekends are a rare commodity, and I don't take it lightly that you're joining us here today. But I've asked Dr. Ivanov to take a few minutes to talk about the labs that have opened up here at the museum recently. There are 3 of them, and to talk a little bit about what they are and how they're going to benefit not only research and collections, but the museum community in general. So Dr. Ivanov.
Thank you, Art. Good morning, everybody. I want to share a few really exciting infrastructure improvements, a little bit in the RNC wing, the impact into our institution. Two of them are fully operational. Those are our molecular lab and STEM lab. Molecular lab opened up end of summer of last year. And after a few hiccups, we finally extracted the first DNA, we sequenced the first DNA sample that came back last month. So the data are good and we can move forward. And that will be currently is in support of recent vertebrates, mostly mammalogy department who actually make use of it, but especially Dr. Kuhn with her research, which is not exclusively, but heavily based on genetic data. And the next step in the molecular lab is improve our tissue collection, which requires cold storage. So we need to expand. We were already talking with Dr. Kuhn, Dr. Mees to actually put forward the proposal to acquire some new infrastructure to help us move forward. The second lab, and saying that everybody in RNC and everybody across the entire institution held that molecular STEM lab were almost exclusively internally funded over the last 2 years. And thank you, Jonathan, for making that possible. The STEM lab came up as a discussion of the increased use of digital technologies across all disciplines. So that is where we currently share our geospatial tools, geospatial data collection analysis, and that is heavily in support of our cultural heritage monitoring lab and Dr. Bass's work. In addition to that, we have a high-end computer for analyzing three-dimensional data, 3D printer, and that is heavily in support of Dr. Pritchard's work on his reptile evolution. In addition to that, if I'm not mistaken, we're getting a new 3D printer, and the next step is to get a 3D scanner, of course, to move that research even forward, more forward. And the next one, we have a high-resolution imaging system heavily used by research staffers across all departments. And the next step there is to actually increase our resolution by getting a microscope-based imaging system. Right now, it's a camera with a macro lens. The next step is to go even further. Right now, our resolution gets down to probably about a tenth of a millimeter. But if we want to discern some details, again, we don't have an electron microscope on site, so that is our best option. And some of those images have already been used in publications. And the most recent thing, which is work in progress and our self-imposed deadline for making it happen, Christy just let me know last week, November 16th. And that's our microscopy lab. That is entirely externally funded. After 3 years of trying, we finally convinced IMLS to give us some money, and they did. So this is a microscopy lab that will be used across all departments, but not only visiting scholars, school groups, exhibits, outreach, training. Virginia Master Naturalists, we do training every year across all departments. Those will be housed there. We have 15 student microscope. We have 3 instructor microscope, all with Wi-Fi capabilities. So we'll have screens and we'll show live images. Not only that, but students will be able to use their devices where there are tablets or even their phones to acquire live images. They can annotate and they can save them, they can use them at home. That will be also incredibly helpful for students with disabilities. We'll be able to reach and actually get them to partake in activities that otherwise are probably nearly impossible. We'll also be able to do that live, right? Maybe even do training from here for student groups located elsewhere in the Commonwealth. So it's really exciting. And again, we're pretty confident we'll make it happen by the 6th, and it will be fully operational, not fully completed, but so.
What was the first DNA?
Actually, the first one was, we got, it's not the first one because we sequenced 96. That's what a plate covers. So 96 samples total, millipedes, ants, and isopods. Surprisingly, the 3 groups that we heavily work on. They were all vertebrates.
Isopods are roly-polies for the rest of you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And if any of you are interested at any point, I can give you a tour of the facilities.
Thank you. The next item I want to bring up is that, as you know, the museum is working toward renewing its accreditation, which is the gold standard for museums. And that affects many of our activities, one of which is our collections policy. How do we handle our collections, and even to the point of defining what are collections? And we had a very lively discussion based on an existing document. In short, collections are specimens, artifacts, and all their supporting documentation, digital, paper, photographic, and otherwise technologies that we know of now or maybe invented in the future. How's that for legalese talk? But our mammalogist, Dr. Moncrief, is heading up this effort to update the museum policy that has been in place since 2013, and working with Museum Council, she has updated the language and has distributed it to the members of the Research and Collections Committee. And we have come up with a deadline that all of the members of that committee have the opportunity to comment on that document, to make corrections, ask questions, and so on, until January 1st of next year. At that time, all those comments will be collated into a single document by Dr. Moncrief and then distributed to the committee. And then a final document will be brought forward at the next meeting in February for approval by the full board. I want to extend an invitation to all of the board members. If you are interested in taking part in this process, which is very important, it is kind of an exercise, and I admit there are parts of the document that have my head scratching moments too, but it's a great way to learn what the museum does and why it does it and how it does it. And if you're interested, please contact Ben Lind, our science administrator, and he would be happy to send you this document. And then using the, I can't remember the app, anyway, when you make live comments right onto the document, and then submit that by January 1st to Ben, and we'll get your comments incorporated as well. So I hope all of you will take advantage of that. If you want a glimpse of what we're talking about, look at the RNC report that's in your board packet. It's an excessively long packet, but that's because these documents are in there. This also includes the animal care document, which is a very new policy for this museum because we have a number of live animals, all primarily invertebrates, no birds, no mammals, that are used for educational purposes. We're not doing any research with live animals here, but there are requirements that we need to recognize in terms of their care. And so this document is toward that means.
Art, I just, reinforce what you said. I think it's important that we see, when you look at that document, it touches almost every other committee.
Yes.
That this organization is all about. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just all about research and collections. It impacts facilities, it impacts education,
Right.
impacts everything. So it's worth understanding.
Right, and for those of you that are new to the board, boy, this is a great way to jump right in with both feet and get an idea of what you've gotten yourself into. But it's important work, and it's important that we get as many perspectives as possible. So this is an opportunity to do just that. Finally, 2 weeks ago and previous occasions, I do research here at the museum. I work with the collections regularly. I contribute specimens to the museum, make identifications, and work with the curators here. I have occasion to use the internet, and the connection here is abysmal. I didn't understand how it works here. My initial concern, other than my own personal frustration, was that, oh my God, this is what the curators have to deal with. But Ryan explained to me that there are two systems. There's the hardwired state system, which is what the curators rely on primarily to do their work. And then then Comcast supplies the rest. And in that part of the museum, I'm pointing to the research and collections area on the second floor. Oftentimes for visitors and also for the curators as well, who are required to use other equipment in order to access applications that are not approved by the state or very difficult to get the state to upload on board on the state computers, they rely on that Comcast system too, and it's very intermittent. So we had a lively discussion about that, and I'm not sure exactly who to direct my comments to, and I don't mean to put you under the bus. No, that's not what I'm doing. No. But what I'm suggesting is that what we are suggesting is that if there's an opportunity to bring Comcast in to review at least the area up in research and collections and see if there's a way of strengthening the signal there, And possibly if there's a way of dedicating a signal that requires a security password that would be available to staff and visiting researchers. And of course, there would be open signals too that are available to the public that are doing this, that, and the other thing. But that could be a real boon because the staff is apparently very dependent on using applications that aren't available through the state system, and in collaborating with people outside the museum, it makes it very difficult to share data and collaborate on research projects. And so if there's a way of doing that.
I'll definitely get to the bottom of this. I will say I have gone over to research and collections solely to tap the wireless. So it sounds like we have something not lining up right, and I want to make sure
There are 4 signals available, and I was there on Friday, and it was very sketchy all day. Sometimes I would surf the different signal looking for the strongest signal, but I also worked here on Saturday, and there was a big difference. It was still sketchy at times, but it worked much better. So obviously there's a lot of traffic somewhere, amongst the public, I'm assuming, using these same signals. So at the very least, if there's a way of strengthening the signals in that part of the building, or at least dedicating one system that's password protected that could be used by staff and visiting researchers or for other special purposes, that would be a real boon.
Yeah, and again, something's not lining up because we have a fiber optic cable going to this building that we installed a while ago. And so we've got, what's it called, MyNet, the city system, right? We specifically did that to bolster our wireless. So something isn't right.
Well, I would appreciate,
Yeah.
I would appreciate Ryan taking the time to explain to me, because I was total dummy about this. And so he brought me up to speed.
And like I said, take care of this, please.
This is not I'm not saying it's my frustration that's driving this. I was concerned initially.
I
what the curators were relying on, and I thought, wow, apparently that's not the case, but in some areas it definitely is.
Yeah. I don't like that. So,
okay. All right. Well, thank you. I've taken up enough time, but I appreciate your indulgence.
Anything else for Art? Okay, we are going to take a 3-minute break to grab our lunches because nobody's going to want to be eating their lunch and touring Douglas Avenue at the same time. So we will resume at 11:40. So 4 minutes.
We've got box lunches over here and
And there are 2 salads with dietary needs that don't eat on them, and there's bread and coffee, and there's like regular people like sandwich and wraps as well.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
And eventually we'll get to not to play. I'm trying really hard. I want to take it off. Just put it off. We'll deliver at 10 a.m. Saturday.
Right.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. It's just to let you know. I used to work in
But I would like, I really want we have enough money, that 9,000, we can bring it You recall?
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly.
I never get to make anything more better for what we're doing.
Oh, yeah, it's just. Let's say 600 one, getting a laptop. It's
right.
But if it's 2005,
I see.
cables and everything else, you'll get. Think about this. Lies. And actually, we can give them.
And if you don't grab a lunch, there's also going to be like.
Yeah, if you take on.
Yeah, I gotta meet a student, so I need to speak with some people. Students.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Of course. Good.
Like, you can, Matt, you hadn't had to look around, so, I have to offer you that. And I. Yes. Yeah, they don't.
You are. Okay, I just want to make sure. I will start.
You did that work.
Exactly. Yes, we're.
That's okay.
Very pretty cool.
That's what wait for you at home.
Who's the artist?
Yeah, my girlfriend.
Oh, my goodness, she's a keeper, I think. All right. 11:40, man, tight ship.
Yep.
All right. So, during the executive report, director's report, we overlooked the fundraising information. So I think we're gonna go backwards on the agenda, one item. And have, I think it's Ryan, talk about, give us an update on fundraising. So Ryan, you're it.
Okay, thanks, thanks Lisa. And a lot of this has been touched on, but I just want to kind of highlight some big picture. And first I want to thank PD Foley for being here on the foundation board. We have a very strong relationship. So Joe and myself attend most of the foundation meetings as staff liaison. So it's a good relationship. We talked about donations being up significantly. That's very exciting. Earned revenue on the museum side is up as well, 94% over last year, and visitation as well. So a lot of that is pandemic driven, but we're up about 100% on that for the first quarter. Memberships are going strong, so we're seeing increased sales. We do sales at festivals, so we have a table set up as people come in, we upsell, we talk about the membership benefits. For larger families, we do the math as quickly as you can and say, hey, you can pay this or pay the same amount and get it all year free of charge. Dinah Festival obviously is the festival reflected in this report because it's the first quarter only. Of course, that was a huge crowd, a record crowd of 4600 people. But of course, Bones and Booze was talked about already. Great crowd. Different event. It was more in the evening, but I think it was a great turnout. We actually have a special show we'll do at the end. Ben's gonna show you something really cool related to that at the end. We talked about the heat maps, so it's in your packet. You've got the electronic version of it, but I encourage you to look at as Joe referenced, the zip code distribution is very positive. We're seeing the trends that we're expanding our reach, so we're strong in the North Carolina market, both Greensboro, Winston-Salem, of course, Roanoke as well, and further. So we're seeing increased visitation from the Shenandoah Valley, of course, for obvious reasons, and we want to continue that as well. And festivals are a major driver of that. As far as upcoming, we've got our next festival, our Bug Festival, which is January 28th. It's a very popular festival. It's a long time event. Not always the hugest crowd, but in many ways that's great because it's a very unique visitor experience where it's a lot going on. Visitors are able to talk to the curators, talk to the research staff, and they have time to do that. It's not such a shoulder to shoulder crowd. So we feel like it's one of our best events, one of our favorite events to have. So we're excited about that.
Right, if I could also add, and I should have brought this up when you mentioned it, why have Bug Festival in the wintertime? There's no bugs around, right? But because we know we get like 500 people or something into it, and you get that free one-on-one stuff. But we're at the point now where basically all the Bones and Booze, upcoming reptile, upcoming dinosaur are all going to have outdoor components. So we're renting tents for them and that sort of thing. Bug Fest is one of those that we can do in the wintertime and actually fit in the museum. So we need a bigger building.
We didn't have the pavilions.
Yes.
I love these heat maps. These are really.
Jackson,
Jackson, yes, all credit. And we took the raw zip code data that we collected, and I did the little raw, Mark London County, then Pittsburgh County, Jackson took that further into the city now. So having that data is very useful for multiple purposes. And it allows us to make database decisions. So as we schedule events, as we look at events, we try to do things on data. I just want to mention a couple last things. So we mentioned the upcoming exhibits. We've got our next special exhibit opening February 11th. So February 9th, that Thursday before the Saturday, we will have a reception, opening reception for that. And that's going to be our dinosaur discoveries exhibit coming from the American Museum of Natural History. So we're very excited. It'll be open for about a year. It's going to carry us over into the next year, and then we have one after that as well. So having these sort of big name exhibits coming in is going to help us. And also give the museum or the exhibits manager of the city will allow them to kind of get their feet wet without being thrown into the ocean. Last thing, before I turn it over to Ben, is on the last page of the report, we see the historical festival visitation revenue. So this is full fiscal years compared to fiscal year 2023 year to date. And you can see that already with just one festival for this fiscal year, we're already in the top 4 historically of entire years as far as festival visitation and revenue. So Dino Festival alone is almost put us at the top. So next quarter, you'll see the Bones and Blues numbers reflected, and of course, going forward and the festival. I'm going to turn it over to Ben to pull up a really nice video, but I'm happy to answer the questions.
Thanks. Any questions for Ryan?
Go ahead, Ben.
Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, appreciate you letting me take a moment of your time. Won't take too long, but before I do the show and tell, a little bit of background. The museum recently acquired a drone, purchased a drone. This was something that had been discussed for a very long time. I think we hit the exact right time. The technology has just increased exponentially. Prices keep going down, and so we've got a really nice unit for an affordable price. There were 2 broad sort of reasons we thought this would be a good idea. One reason is on the research and collection side. Dr. Bassett in particular is really excited about the opportunities this provides for aerial photography of archaeological sites. Also some cultural heritage monitoring lab applications. So for example, we had flooding in one of these local areas that have a lot of historic value tend to experience flooding. We can send the drone into areas that might not be accessible by car or on foot, get a better understanding of exactly what damage has been done. Of course, the other broad category is promotional purposes. So we can do some really exciting footage of different events, festivals, and things like that. Something we can put on social media that will gen up a lot of interest, some really compelling footage that hopefully people will click on and share. So
I just want to mention too, the drone was made possible by the foundation. So
Yeah.
the foundation allowed us to purchase the drone. Very exciting.
absolutely. With that in mind,
How many of you have the FAA license?
so that's a very good question. I am pursuing the FAA license, but it is not strictly required.
Okay,
So the way it works is if you are a commercial drone operator selling your services, then you have to get them. But I am pursuing it just because I like to cross the T's and dot the I's. And also I want to buy a pilot's cap. And it doesn't really feel like, that's appropriate until I've got that licensure. But, so I will just share here. Video, I recorded this at Bones and Booze 2 weeks ago. Nice look at the solar panels. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, is there any questions about the drone? Happy to answer. But, that's what I've got. Thank you all.
Thank you, though. Make sure you all get lunches. All right, so that takes us to Nathan, who's hopefully still with us. I can't tell.
Look like
No. Okay, so we'll skip Nathan and the education committee and come back. So Tom, facilities.
Yeah, thank you. We did have 2 facilities committee meetings since our last quarterly board meeting. There are some minutes, I think, in your packet for both of those meetings, and there's also some updates in Joe's director's report. And so basically going down the list of facilities in terms of the ESCO project, my understanding that we're now hooked up with the solar and we're getting about 25% of our electricity costs from solar, something like that. So that's an exciting thing. And I believe there's also going to be a dashboard that's available so we can monitor. There's an online dashboard. An online dashboard for monitoring the support that we're getting through the solar. We're waiting for some LEDs. I think still. Yeah. And I just heard that the EV chargers are up and going, so that's an exciting development as well regarding the ESCO project. About the Waynesboro project, there's a lot to say. I've spent a lot of time, not as part of the facilities committee, but certainly as part of the Waynesboro advocacy committee, and then I'll report on as well. But suffice it to say that we're making really good progress on the detailed design for that new campus. And I'll have more to say in the Waynesboro advocacy committee report if there are questions about that. Like Lisa, I encourage you to participate in the tour that we're going to do of Douglas Avenue after our meeting today. I had the opportunity for the first time to see it myself and didn't really appreciate before going over there how large the space is. It is an old school building, and it has been, you know, it was used historically as the site of our museum, but there's a lot of lab equipment over there, some of the collections, a good deal of exhibits, and so forth. And so I think if you can participate in that, you'll get a better sense of the size and magnitude of the facility over there and the piece that houses for us. I know that the roof was updated. You probably heard about from the last report. I don't have anything else to add about that one. The pavilion project is the other facility agenda item that we spent some time with, and my understanding that that was expected to go to bid. I don't know if it is currently in bid, but around this time.
Yes, the final submission to the documents is with Department of General Services.
Okay.
The fact we've added 2 new reviewers to the project.
Okay.
That's part of the executive board order 45. So that's runoff and drainage and stairwells. So we're working through it.
Great. And that's the extent, I believe, of my facility committee report. You have taken questions.
I have a question. There was something in your report that I didn't quite understand about the dashboard for the solar or whatever. It's gonna be hard to display or something like that. What's going on with that dashboard?
So that one, that basically was itself the budget for the project, or the dollar cost, for every dollar saved, we could spend that dollar. There wasn't a budget for that display, so the educational display. We were moving forward with getting the project online first, and then we're going to explore options for displaying it to the public here. There is an online display or an online dashboard website you can visit to see that information.
Okay, but we are working toward having something physical that people can see, like energy saved, energy created, something like that. I think that's really important.
We take solar panel, so we're gonna have that hooked up somewhere or displayed in the, still in the right state.
Okay, all right, good. I think that's really important. I'm gonna make a follow-up dashboard to come. Anybody else have any questions for Tom about the facilities committee?
Well, I thank Ford and Jennifer for joining me on the committee, and if anybody else wants to join the committee, happy to have.
Okay, I don't think Nathan is back yet. So, Tom, we're gonna go back to you for the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee.
That's good. I had my lunch already, so I'll be quick. And the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee has met monthly since our last quarterly meeting. And as you heard at the last quarterly meeting, we did engage Bobby Holmes, the architectural firm in Richmond, as lead for the team that's putting together the detailed design. And they've been very active, and we've had staff have had meetings with them. In addition, we've had them in the community with meetings there, and they've drafted for us a number of versions of what the building should look like, starting essentially with our preliminary design and the spaces that we identified in that design, and then reconfiguring them in a way that I think even it looks more attractive to me than the building that we had in the preliminary design process. I've been meeting with the community as best I can to kind of share that information. We've been hosting, as we have in the past, the science talks at the Wayne Theater, and that's a great venue for us to kind of keep the community engaged with the project. There's a lot of excitement in the community. We also had a table at the Fall Foliage Festival, which was a significant event. We had lots of community members come up and say how excited they are that this is coming to town. So I think it's going well. One thing that I wanted to bring up, when Joe made it aware to the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, was that we were approached by Carter and Company with a proposal for fundraising council and coaching services. This is the company that put together for us the campaign plan study in 2015. So they're already familiar with the project, and they say, you know, they came to us with a proposal to assist in the next phase, really, for making a case for campaign support and the gift table. And this is all targeting that part of the fundraising that's going to be outside of the state process, right? So we know that we're going to the state, and I should have said that really the goal with Bobby Holmes right now is to get the building designed such that we can have a cost estimate, and that cost estimate can go to the General Assembly early next year. Some of the exhibit design will follow that, but we need to get that in front of the General Assembly, that cost estimate. Assuming that that gets approved for the capital budget by the state, then we're going to be engaged with raising additional $2 and maybe more $1 million from private sources. And so this, as like getting back to this Carter proposal, is to provide fundraising council and coaching services, because we think that's going to be a pretty heavy lift for our existing team in advancement and certainly through the foundation. And so we want to provide support there. They would engage for 6 months, and they would work closely with the museum staff, meeting weekly with Joe and with community to really take the lead and pretty much be our development office for this particular project, is the way I understand it. Is that pretty good, Joe, for the description? And they're proposing to charge $46,200 plus their travel, meals, and lodging. We have some funds already earmarked for Waynesboro that we think would cover that within the foundation budget. And what I would like to do, and what we talked about with the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, is make a recommendation here to the full board that we express our support for the idea of this proposal being funded through the foundation. We don't have the authority to do that. We would have to refer that to the foundation. And I'm glad DB's here to hear this, and certainly with Joe to bring the case for this to go forward and be supported, so that we take that on in the coming year, and that we can follow the decision by the state to put in their capital funds. So that recommendation comes out of the grad. That's really what I have to report, and I have to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Tom on any of that?
I would, as a member of the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, I would like to add that, I believe the assistance of the Carter, company is greatly needed, in large part because there are lots of new projects that are being proposed in Waynesboro. Ours is not being. And so having someone who can help navigate and find the people who are going to be supportive of this when they have so many other things to choose from and so many asks, I think is really beyond our capability. You need people who know how to do this work.
I will say the two principals on the proposal are the gentleman who helped us with the study in 2015, and an additional principal who is in Roanoke, so fairly close to the museum. I think it would be very convenient for Joe to visit her or her to visit Joe and have a pretty close contact as we move forward with the staff. So, and I thought both of those principals have significant experience in the museum realm and with fundraising and developing the campaign that's being to raise $2,000.
And as the other member here on the committee, I absolutely echo those sentiments for sure.
And I'll just add that I checked on Carter's references as well. So
So we're not voting on this yet, to let people know, we're just endorsing it before we get to a vote. Do you have a question, Ann?
Well, more of, yeah, kind of a question, kind of a comment. So thinking about the fee structure, maybe looking at some combination of flat fee and targeted goals.
What they are able to raise, kind of thing.
Or what the museum's able to raise, even if it,
Contingency.
Yeah.
yeah, kind of, sort of, having worked with fundraising consultants in the past.
It makes sense rather than a flat fee.
I mean, you gotta give them something, you know,
Right.
just for their time,
Right.
but let's just say they were asking for 46, and you might give them 40 flat, and then say, you get 2% of any amount raised over $1 million. You know, whatever we feel like, well, you know, we could have raised $1 million by ourselves.
Right.
I don't know, but it's just something to look at, Brian, and see what other kind of what the standard is in the industry. But it is making benchmarks, as I call it. Just the thought.
That makes a ton of stuff. You're scratching your.
well, it is the other perspective on this, and I like the idea of let's find out what other people are doing these days. And fortunately, we do have a CFRE over here, certified fundraising expert. He attends AFP meetings, Association of Fundraising Professionals. We can tap those folks to get some advice on that, because I think and I just want to make sure we navigate carefully, but there is one philosophy of ethics of the funds that you raise. So I'm giving you $1,000 for a project, but 100 of that is going to the fundraising company. You got to be straight up with that, so I want to make sure.
Well, it may be that, again, not the foundation, but the foundation sets aside rather than coming through the donations. It's just part of the fee that you're paying.
Sure.
It could be based on goal, like I'm making this up, you give them 40 and then they get the extra 20, they get X part. I mean, I don't know, it could be set up that way, instead of a percent, it could just be a flat fee, but then if you get to X amount, you get more, you get the Y amount.
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
I think the best, and maybe we could have some of our colleagues, if they have a redacted MOU with another fundraising company, or one that they presented to someone they work with, they can redact the specific information, and so we can see how that's set up and we can model that.
Having said all that, 40 something doesn't seem like a lot to raise $1 million or whatever, but still think we should
And I think our role here is not necessarily to talk about the fee structure, that's probably nothing for the
Yeah.
foundation board to consider, but certainly to recommend that they
Right.
take this up and look at it closely, because I think it is a valuable proposal.
Agreed.
There's a question here.
Roberto.
Yeah, you folks are kind of hitting some of the thoughts I was had in my mind when I heard this in terms of who exactly is the client. If there's a contract to be signed, I'm assuming it's coming from the foundation, and the foundation is going to be somehow the lead dog, so to speak, and who the client answers to. So while we have all these discussions, I think these discussions are great because at the end of the day, they're doing this on our behalf and using our name and liability and all that image kind of reflects on us. That being said, in terms of some of the contracts, because this kind of mirrors some of the stuff we do in the nonprofit world in terms of sponsorships and conferences and all that, I'd be curious to see not only on the fee structure, but the sources of the funds. So in other words, are they going to the same people we go to anyway? So they're not really, bringing something to the table, as opposed to bringing new sources of revenue and new sources of sponsorship that, we're paying them to find new customers, so to speak, not tilling the same fields that we've been tilling for X amount of years anyway. So what, if there is going to be some kind of fee structure and some articulation in the contract about what are the sources that they're going to be, harvesting and looking for, hunting versus gathering, so to speak, in the sponsorship terms. Because my point number 3 then is, I don't know if the foundation and we have a prioritized list of projects in terms of funding that we want to go after. So if, for example, they're going to go to our usual sources, and then, next year we're going to want a new dinosaur, where those sources are going to say, well, I just gave you $1 million for Waynesboro. I don't have another $1 million to give you for your new dinosaur. So, I don't know if they or we have a prioritized list that then, if we're going to use our sources for Waynesboro, what happens when the next project comes along and we're going to try to find money for that. So the combination of where the money is coming from and our prioritized sources of funding somehow may want to play in the mix such that we're not, drying up our sources just on Waynesboro going forward. Or how long after Waynesboro then, let's say the Canopy project, when the Canopy project comes along, are we going to be going to the same and or new sources to try to get that funded? So just adding to the mix of considerations we have, because if this is technically a foundation project, then how do we get our thoughts and concerns into the mix?
I think that's a great point, Roberto, and I just want to say it's long been our strategy to ensure, like we've never asked a local person in Southern Virginia, which is the vast majority of our discovery funds, memberships and everything, for money for Waynesboro and vice versa. So everything that we raise in Waynesboro stays within the Central Virginia area.
Yeah, I think, given the excitement that I saw in the community, I don't think that these are sources that the museum is already tapping, that there's a lot of potential up there in Waynesboro and the surrounding area to develop new sources.
Yeah.
And I believe that's where we're going with this proposal. So I get your points, Roberto, but I don't think we're going to be double dipping on existing sources. And I think my understanding is the proposal is really to develop a case for the campaign support. And I don't know how much of the legwork they do in doing the ask. I think there is some part of the proposal that says they would join us for meetings with potential donors and the ask process. They also talk about developing a gift table for us. And maybe that's something that Ryan can already do, but my sense was that this would help bolster the existing resources that we have and, take some of the load off of that load, so that, because it's such a significant lift, so that they would develop this gift table for us, maybe say, if you want to name the patio on the roof after your company, here's what it's gonna cost. That kind of thing.
We've already produced a preliminary one that we've shared with Greg because he talks to corporate people, so he's not making asks on our behalf. This is the Director of Economic Development, but he's just informing people there are going to be opportunities down the road. So there are broad-based naming opportunities. So for instance, we can say an exhibit, case with, to name it would be $10,000, right? But we don't know it's that case yet. So that's something we're going to grow with Carter and their help. They're going to be the savvy ones to make sure it's presented well.
So we have 3 more action items and we're debating something we're not going to vote on today. So I guess I'll just ask if there are any more questions or discussion on that topic before we move on. Just to try and keep this on schedule.
I just want to add one last thing about the Win for Advocacy Committee. I did actually enjoy with Ben and Joe producing a podcast that's out there. So if anybody wants to hear the podcast with Joe and I being interviewed about the change for our project, I can recommend.
How do we get access to the podcast?
Ben?
Yes, you can go on the Apple Podcasts app or Spotify and look up VMNH cast, or you can go to VMNH.net. And there is a tab and you can actually listen to it within our website. Audio calls from them.
All right, don't work for everybody. Okay, I do not see Nathan back, so Roberto, I think you're up for the Strategic Planning Committee report. Before we do that, is there anybody else here from the Education and Public Programs Committee that could give a report if Nathan does not come back?
I think the meeting was canceled yesterday, but Christie can give a general
Okay,
update.
all right, let's go ahead, Roberto, you're up.
Thanks, folks. Just I wrote a few points, and in the interest of expediency, I'll try to go through them quick unless folks have any questions and we can dig down further. Just as a general note, you saw the minutes in the board report. We had a technical glitch along the way, so I would hope you'll indulge and request if anybody has any items that were left out or any of the feedback you'd like to incorporate, just to bring that up so that we can be sure we have the robust list of items that were discussed. Going from that discussion, we did mention we were going to reach out to our contacts at Roanoke College, and Molly would help us find their chief diversity person there. The two of us and Joe and that person had an offline call where she gave us a presentation just to ground us on a number of general issues and definitions and things to think about, so that she has a PowerPoint deck that if anybody's interested, we could obviously share with everybody, but all in the interest of one of the subcategories within our strategy to expand on the DEIA efforts, understandings and area that we may want to go to next, both within the board, but more generally within the museum and our stakeholders. Joe offered to look in how these items and thoughts might relate to the museum operations in itself. We'll explore that further. And if there's anything else that we may have left out, I hope folks will bring that up. One of the salient points that we brought up, and you've heard during our discussions, it being lockstep with the foundation, and particularly as we head through Waynesboro. In some of the conversations I learned that the foundation does not have its own strategic plan. They kind of build off of ours. So as our committee goes through, and if the other board members have ideas in terms of how we can expand the lockstep, or how we look forward on things that we as a museum need, that we want to ensure that the foundation thinks about as it goes through its processes, we bring that to light. Other than that, obviously we'll need to set up another meeting to go forward from where we are today. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to more than entertain them. My fellow committee members, if there's anything I may have left out, please jump in.
Anything for Roberto or from any other members of the committee?
I'm the DEI director for my college and one of 10 for JMU. So I have a lot of information, and if I can help with this, let me know.
Thank you.
Did you hear that, Roberto?
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think part of the mini strategy is to share informational background materials amongst all of us so that we develop a level field of our understanding. And then we could build from that so that we're all using the same language and same definitions and, aspirations as to where we want to go.
All right, once you guys come up with the language, you'll have to educate the board so we're all using the right language. All right. Anything else for strategic planning committee? Okay, in Nathan's absence, I'm going to ask Christy to please give us an brief update on education public programs.
And thank you. Yes, we were scheduled to meet yesterday, and due to unexpected illness and attendance, we decided to cancel the meeting. But I can give a brief update. And if you would like to review the information, it is attachment, I believe, number 7 in your board packet. And just a quick overview, the numbers reflected for this quarter were July through September. So it was kind of a transition time for the education department, wrapping up summer programming, summer camps, and then transitioning into our outreach programming with the school districts and our monthly public programs that we hold at the museum, such as homeschool and our toddler programs every month. So our numbers, and I know this has been mentioned before with various other reports, our education numbers are improving, increasing from, of course, last year. We are still not back at our 2019 numbers, but they are greatly improving, and a lot of that is due in part to our grants that we have received to offer our teachers scholarships. So the scholarships cover our program fee cost. And so they are able to submit an application for a scholarship, cover the funds, and we can either go into their classroom for the programming as outreach, or they can set up a visit here and be able to explore the exhibits and then have programming done here. So right now, we're heavy with our grant programming now through the end of the school year. So it's been a great project with our grants, and the teachers are so appreciative. When you look at the numbers for our local Martinsville City and Henry County, it is a very economic disadvantaged area. And so a lot of them do not have that support within the school to be able to participate in outside of the classroom activities. So being able to offer the scholarships has greatly helped with the teachers. So they're very appreciative. Something else that I wanted to mention was something that Dr. Ivanoff mentioned with the microscope lab. So we are working to get that operational. We have a couple of what I'm calling our guinea pig groups that we're going to utilize at the end of this month, which are our homeschool programming and some private schools that will be coming in, so that we can kind of test the waters with the microscope lab and then roll out our programming with the school district.
So that's very exciting. Any questions? Okay. All right. We're going to go into closed session, but I hope will be a very brief discussion on the personnel matter. So other than reading this, do we need to do anything else before we decide to?
Yeah. So
I better read it first. Okay. I move the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History enter a closed session for discuss the personnel matter pursuant to the personnel exemption in Virginia Code 2.2-371 IA1. The motion, we require a motion and a second, and then a roll call vote. So do we have a motion that we do that? Okay, in Nathan's absence, who's going to help us with roll call vote? Okay, and I think the folks that aren't allowed to stay are already, and you're grabbing lunches on the way. Okay, everybody make sure you get on that. Okay, roll call vote.
Dr. Abdullah.
Wakanda?
Yes, yes.
Dr. Vincent.
Yeah.
Ms. Burnett. Yes. Mr. Buck.
Yeah.
Ms. Carter.
Yeah.
Mr. Cochran.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yeah.
Dr. Nash.
Yes.
Mr. Quinones.
Yes.
And Ms. Woodson. Yes.
Okay, is there anything we need to do to turn off the live streaming?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll work on
Breakout room, and or you do me a favor and write down who makes the motion and second.
Yep.
And-
Okay, are we turned off or?
Not yet.
Just so everybody knows, I'm going to create a breakout room called closed session, which you should be sent to automatically. The main meeting will still be in session, and that's what's going to be streamed live while you all are in closed session. When you are done with closed session, you can simply click the leave closed session button. It should be at the bottom right of your toolbar on Zoom.
I will do it when I come back for everyone.
Well, we can come find you and ask you to push the
I'm
button.
gonna text it.
Okay, you're gonna text her, okay? All right,
But yeah, I will be sending you out there right now.
thank you.
Yeah, deer in the headlights looking. I see the leave button. I did not know how to click that.
I know, I'm just saying. Principals or milkshakes, principals. Okay. All right. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History convened in closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, whereas Virginia Code 2.2-3712 requires a certification by this board that such a closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully existed from open meeting requirements under Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened or heard, assessed or considered in the closed meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History. So now we need a roll call vote.
Dr. Abdul-Baki.
Macondo, are you there?
When I say I'm working, I'm actually still working. So I was doing a circumcision, but yes, I'm still here. Yes.
Ouch.
Exactly.
I think that's a yes, I think.
Dr. Benzing.
Yes.
Ms. Burnett.
Yes.
Mr. Buck.
Yes.
Ms. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Cochran.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Dr. Knapp.
I'm flummoxed.
Yes. Mr. Quinones.
Yes.
And Ms. Lister.
Okay.
Just a reminder to all, we're on YouTube live.
Okay, all right. That concludes everything unless there are any announcements.
Next meeting, announce the date. So for the next meeting, we are talking about holding it in Richmond. And the reason is to tie it with General Assembly activities. So Lisa was kind enough to volunteer to get some input from people who can allow us to time our meeting during a period that would be appropriate for approaching the General Assembly. And we'll alert you as to what the format of the meeting and the interaction and everything else will be. So
And an office and a hot lunch.
yes, and so she's also gracious enough, it'll occur at the Dominion Building, probably in February.
Get a nice tour of our green room
Yeah.
with pollinators, et cetera.
February.
Well, they'll be dormant, but they'll be there.
Yeah, right.
But we're just never know.
Early enough in the session to advocate? Or
It is a short session, so again,
It might be early February. We'll find out. We'll find out, yeah. I will ask our people. If somebody else has connections and can ask too, that'd be great. But if not, I'll ask our lobbyist. All right, with that, anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, we're adjourned. Where do we go?
All right, I've got a van on the side of the building, if anyone would like to ride over. If you want to leave anything here, the door will be secured. Everybody this. Okay. Yes, there's plenty of parking.
How long do you think it's gonna last? We have a question.
You can get through the whole building in 10 to 15 minutes. What we're gonna do
Nobody's
is
keeping you there.
the people who want to